Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 11, Text 26.
26. I have in the board with 26. You can bring it.
Should be on the board. The chapter is Lord Ramachandra, the dynasty of Lord Ramachandra, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
26.
Yeah.
Same verse from yesterday.
Yeah, but yesterday he nominated 26.
No, we did number 25 yesterday.
For different verse yesterday. 26.
Ashiktamagam Gantodai Kalinam Swaminam Praptamalokya Matangva Sutaramiva Ashiktamagam Gantodai
Sutarameva Ashikaramargandandai
Ashiktamargam Godamdhai Karinam Madashikarai Swaminam Praptamalokya Matam Vasutaramniva
Ashaktamargadadai Karinamadashikare Swaminam Praptalokya Matavasutaramniva
Ashiktamargam Gadodai
Ashiktamargadadai Karinamadashikarai
Swaminam Praptamalokya
Swaminam Praptamalokya Matavasutaramniva Christopher Ashiktamargadadai Karinamadashikarai Swaminam Praptamalokya Matavasutaramniva.
Askitamargam Gandodai
Ashiktamargadadai
Karinamadashikarai
Karinamadashikarai
Swaminam Praptam Alokya
Swaminam Praptamalokya
Mattam Vasudaram Iva
Matavasutaramniva Ashiktamargadadai Karinamadashikarai Swaminam Praptamalokya Matavasutaramniva Ashiktamargadadai Karinamadashikarai Swaminam praptamalokya Madhava Sutaramiva
Word for word. Ashiktam Margam. The streets were sprinkled. Kandudai.
Gandadai
With perfumed water. Karina.
Karina
Of elephants.
That's all that fast.
Madashikarai.
Madashikarai
With particles of perfumed liquor. Swaminam.
Swaminam
The master or proprietor.
the master
Praptam.
Praptam
Present.
Present
Alokya. Seeing. Seeing personally.
See personally
Matam.
Matam
Very opulent.
Very opulent
Va.
Va
Either. Sutaram.
Sutaram
Highly. Eva.
Eva
As if. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
During the reign of Lord Ramachandra, the streets of the capital, Ayodhya, were sprinkled with perfumed water and drops of perfumed liquor thrown about by elephants from their trunks. When the citizens saw the Lord personally supervising the affairs of the city in such opulence, they appreciated this opulence very much. Purport. We have simply heard about the opulence of Ram Rajya during the reign of Lord Ramachandra. Now here is one example of the opulence of the Lord's kingdom. The streets of Ayodhya were not only cleaned, but also sprinkled with perfumed water and drops of perfumed liquor, which are distributed by elephants through their trunks. There was no need of sprinkling machines, for the elephant has a natural ability to suck water through its trunk and again throw it out in a shower. We can understand the opulence of the city from this one example. It was actually sprinkled with perfumed water. Moreover, the citizens had the opportunity to see the Lord personally supervising the affairs of state. He was not a sleeping monarch, as we can understand from his activities in sending his brothers to see to affairs outside the capital and punish anyone who did not obey the emperor's orders. This is called Dig Vijay. The citizens were all given facilities for peaceful life, and they were also qualified with appropriate attributes according to Varna Ashram. As we have seen from the previous chapter, Varna Ashram Gunavitar, the citizens were trained according to the Varna Ashram system. A class of men were Brahmanas, a class of men were Kshatriyas, a class were Vaishyas, and a class were Shudras. Without this scientific division, there can be no question of good citizenship. The king, being magnanimous and perfect in his duty, performed many sacrifices and treated the citizens as his sons. And the citizens, being trained in the Varnashram system, were obedient and perfectly ordered. The entire monarchy was so opulent and peaceful that the government was even able to sprinkle the street with perfumed water. What to speak of other management? Since the city was sprinkled with perfumed water, we can simply imagine how opulent it was in other respects. Why should the citizens not have felt happy during the reign of Lord Ramachandra? Nam Shuddai Krishna Stai Budale Sumari Bhakti Kasam Nam Shuddai Budale Sumari Bhakti Kasam Vajikalpatrubhyascha. Thank you very much for this opportunity to say something. I'm sorry I'm not speaking in French. Everybody understand English? Yeah. Okay. But I think the idea is that it's translated into French for those who watch on the internet who can't speak English. Anyway. I hope you can understand most what I say.
The video. The people who watch online.
Has it got?
No, she's just explaining something.
For the translation.
Just
She
explaining.
need the translation for French for the video.
So, Prabhupada makes the comment in the purport that the city was very opulent because they were sprinkling perfumed water everywhere. But not only that, it was being done by elephants. Elephants plural, yeah? So that means they had to maintain elephants. And maintaining elephants is a lot of work. The elephants eat a lot. They're very big. You know, you have to have one person just for each elephant, control it. And you have to have elephant house. And then you have to clean the elephant house. You know? A lot of elephant manure. So you can see that it's a big operation, and this is just very one small aspect of the organization of the city. So these elephants obviously must have been trained. That they wouldn't just run off and start doing whatever they wanted, but they would go up and down the streets, sprinkling the water. And then there must have been somewhere with the reservoirs of water for the elephants to suck up and then sprinkle out nicely all over the streets. So it's a very highly organized and costly program. And Prabhupada said this indicates the opulence of the whole city, is because everything was already going on so nicely. Everything was already so well organized and so well managed that they could meditate on organizing some elephants to sprinkle the streets with perfume. You know, they weren't worried about fighting with the neighbors, or they weren't worried about paying the electricity bill, or where were they going to get enough pujaris, or that was already all taken care of. Everybody had enough to eat, there was enough, festivals were all going on, everybody had houses, everybody was, you know, there was no big criminal problem or anything like this. So they could put their minds to, you know, how to make the city more pleasant, you know, how to make the city more pleasing, more attractive by sprinkling this perfume water everywhere. And it probably wasn't some, you know, like some disinfectant or something. It was probably like real essential oils or some flower petals or some herbs would have been used. Some real perfume. Not like we buy nowadays, we just buy some cheap chemical scent, something fake. But this would have been real, made out of roses or something. Some fragrant orange flowers or something like that. So you can imagine, as Prabhupada says, you can imagine what a nice place Ayodhya must have been. That you could walk through the streets and have this smell of perfume, and see these big elephants, and the buildings would all be very, you know, attractive people, and you could walk through the streets and you could feel completely safe. You know, there would be no worries about being mugged or stepping in dog stool or, you know, having all sorts of polluting things blowing in your face from the trucks, or, you know, people trying to cheat you at every step. People selling things, all nonsense things. There was no pornography or noise pollution from kind of horrible music. All these things we have to tolerate now. Last week we were on the Harinam and in Tour, and they have these big billboards everywhere. They have this thing now where they make photographs much bigger than life. So they have a picture of some woman, but they make it like much bigger than an actual woman is. Or they have pictures of food and they make them much. So these pictures are everywhere, and sometimes the ladies, or the men as well, not very well dressed, not properly dressed, but they make these big pictures display everywhere. It's not a nice atmosphere. Yeah? And Vishnujan said to me, he said, why do they put these pictures? Why do they display these pictures everywhere? I said, I don't really know, but it's make it look like something's going on. But actually nothing's going on. It's just the senses and the sense objects. Yeah? The senses and the sense objects. People want to gratify their tongue, and so there's all these objects for the tongue. They go in the bar or they go in the shop to buy some cakes. Everybody's eating. It's just the senses and the sense objects. That's the purpose of a city nowadays. But here, Prabhupada is saying that the people were all trained. Yeah, all the people were trained in Varnashram.
It's like all the city is purpose to serve and how to serve.
Yeah.
Even elephant, flower.
Yeah. So the purpose of human life is this Varnashram. The goal of Varnashram is to please Krishna. So not everybody is ready to be, fully surrendered bhakta or sannyasi or pure devotee, Mahabhagavat devotee. Most people want to live in the society. They want to have a family. They want to have, some occupation. They want to have some pious sense gratification. And so the idea is that the society is organized accordingly, so that everybody can simultaneously fulfill their material desires, for family life and for making money and having some cultured experience, but at the same time they make spiritual advancement. Yeah? So the two things. So Varnashram means that you can make spiritual advancement and satisfy your senses. It's very, very clever. Yeah, very clever design. Of course, who designed it? Krishna. But we think, we have a better design. We have a better idea how to design human life. Human life should be like this, be like this. Actually, it's just all speculative. All speculative, whether it's communism or capitalism or anarchy or whatever social system people come up with. It's all just variations on sense gratification. And it's not pleasing to Krishna. But the Varnashram system is given by Krishna. It's the means for human society is supposed to be organized according to Shastra, so that people can make spiritual progress. So if it's not organized according to Shastra, it's just speculative. And if you're living in a speculation, what progress can you make? If you're living according to some concoction, socialism or some just following somebody who doesn't know where they're going. Prahlad Maharaj says, what is it? The blind are following the blind. The blind leaders are leading the blind people, meaning spiritually blind, meaning Shastra, they don't know. The blind are following the blind and they're being led into the ditch. Yeah, you follow somebody who's blind. There's a blind man, he will help me. And then you all fall in the ditch. And what's in the ditch? It's just some dirty water, some mud. It's not helpful. It's not the goal of life to fall into the ditch. So Modern society is actually a headless society. Headless. There's no intelligence, no brain, no brahmanas. Prabhupada said it's Vaishyas and Shudras. Modern society is Vaishyas and Shudras. People who are interested in making money, instead of protecting the cows, they exploit the cows. And then the Shudras who are just misled. They tend to follow whatever system is in force, they just will follow. But it's like supposed to be that there's a head on society, that there's a brahmanas who know Shastra and who follow it. So this system used to be in place. It used to be in place correctly, the correct Varnashram, the Daivi Varnashram used to be in place in India. It degraded. Now it's become the caste system, which is not, it's exploitive system. It's a perverted reflection. It's Asuric Varnashram. And people use their positions in society to exploit each other, and nobody's happy. But originally it was the Vedic system, the Varnashram system was as we see in Ayodhya, it's very much in force. Because the people in charge of the society were pure. You had pure Brahmanas, I think Vishishta and was advising Lord Ramachandra and his father. You had qualified Brahmanas. And then the Kshatriyas followed what the Brahmanas said. They worked together. Like the Kshatriyas would protect the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas would protect the Kshatriyas. Like the Kshatriyas would protect by physically providing a safe place for the Brahmanas just to study, just to absorb themselves in Shastra, and facilities to speak. And they were maintained. They didn't have to worry about how they were going to pay the rent or buy food or anything like that. The Brahmanas it was a duty to that. They were maintained. They were not taxed, or they didn't have to pay for health care or anything like that. They would have to have their health insurance certificates. And so they were protected by the Kshatriyas, and they were maintained as a class because they were seen to have this very, very valuable function of providing Shastric understanding for the people. And then the king would follow the instructions of the Brahmins. So if the king is following the Brahmins who are following the Shastra, following the path to Krishna, then the king follows the Brahmins, and then the people follow the king. Everybody is going back to Godhead. Everybody's going in the spiritual direction, in the right direction. Whereas if everybody follows somebody who has no brain, no head, the blind man going in, we all go into the ditch, which is the current, which Prabhupada is trying to turn the situation round by his book distribution program. So the Brahmanas protect the Kshatriyas by giving them knowledge. So it's a reciprocal protection. Yeah. The Kshatriya protects the physical situation, the Brahmanas, and then the Brahmanas protect the Kshatriya by telling him, reminding him of his duty to lead the people on the spiritual path. You're not just here to organize, you're not just here to control and patrol the borders and keep all the enemies out. It's not just a matter of running the state from a material point of view. You're here to make sure that the people are practicing their Varnashram duties and making sure that they're acting in accordance with the Shastra. And if they don't, it is the duty of the Kshatriya to punish them. He has to fine them. He has to, if they're deviating from their duty, they have to be killed to set an example. The idea is a very heavy punishment. But it wasn't inflicted because people knew, if I do this, I'm going to get heavy punishment, they don't do it. If you know you're going to get your hand cut off for stealing, you say, oh, I'm not going to steal, you know. It's a deterrent. Whereas if you know that, well, I might get, you know, a couple of months, what do they call it, probation, or I might get, you know, just some points, you know, what they call these points you get on your driving license. What are they called in France? Yes, des points. So you get some points, you know, for doing something bad. Well, it doesn't really matter, you know. You can take the chance and you can do the criminal activity because it's probably not going to get much punishment anyway. But if you know there's going to be a heavy punishment for drinking alcohol, Prabhupada, there's one class Prabhupada gives, says if he eats meat, kill him. If he drinks alcohol, kill him. If he has illicit sex, kill him. If he gambles, kill him. Yeah, Prabhupada speaks like this. This is the, because if you have heavy punishment, people won't do these things. They'll be like, because a lot of people, they need to be controlled by fear. They're given them rules and regulations they don't really follow. But if there's going to be a, if you don't come to Bhagavati, no breakfast. No breakfast. Okay, well I'll go to Bhagavati. I mean, I'm not saying that should be enforced. I'm just saying that that's kind of an example of, you know, a strong stricture tends to bring people in line with the instructions. So that was the idea that the Kshatriyas had power. They actually had power. There's one story it's a controversial story. In the, why not? There's a controversial story in the Ramayana. What was it? Somebody's child was dying or something. There was something really bad happening. I think it was the Brahmana's son that died. But if somebody knows, they can correct me. Anyway, they went to the king, Lord Ramachandra, and they said, this has happened. This is not good. You are the king. You are responsible for this. There must be some adama in this kingdom because this thing has happened. This bad thing has happened, and you are the king. You are responsible. So he went everywhere, searching all over the kingdom, finding out where is the adama that has caused this incident, such a disturbing incident. And then he eventually found one Shudra. He was in a tree and he was hanging upside down in the tree, performing austerities. Right? And he said to him, what are you doing? He said, I'm performing austerities so I can go to heaven. And then Lord Ramachandra just took his sword and cut off his head. Because it's not the duty of the Shudra to do such things. That is not the path for the Shudra. The Shudra wants to go to heaven, he has to serve his master, he has to be, follow all the Varnashram duties of a Shudra. So immediately, I don't know what the situation, I'm stupid, I can't remember, but immediately the negative thing was immediately fixed. As soon as that Shudra was killed, immediately the situation was resolved. That sounds very heavy, that he's an incarnation of Krishna, why would he do that? But the point is to establish Dharma, is to establish what should be done and what should not be done. And if everybody has their duty and everybody follows the duty, and then it's conducive for everybody's welfare, yeah? If everybody follows their duty, you can't start practicing Varnashram on your own. So I am going to follow Varnashram. No, because you need other people, because it's a social thing. Yeah, you need to have a king to rule the people. You need to have other people so that you can have a village and you can all cooperate and grow food and build houses, and you need to have Shudras to do the manual work and to do all the crafts and arts and crafts. You need to have Vaishyas who are going to take care of the cows, who know how to grow food and know how to handle the money that's generated. You have to have all these people, so you can't do Varnashram on your own. It's a group effort. It's like a whole community project. So everybody has to do their duty, and that's why it's so important that everybody does its duty. And the kings in Ayodhya, obviously the king was Lord Ramachandra, But the king's duty is to check that everybody is following their duty. And part of the education of the kings were trained to use a bow and arrow, and they were trained to, to be absolutely fearless. They could just cut heads off if needed. They could punish people just on the spot. They were able to do that, but they also had to know all the details of the duties of all the people in the kingdom. They had to know all the brahmanas' duties. They had to know all the Vaishyas' duties. They had to know all the duties of the Shudras, the different kinds of Shudras, different kinds of Vaishyas, different kinds of Brahmins. There's not just like one kind of Brahmin. Some Brahmins would be more specializing in medicine, some would be more specializing in doing yagyas, some would be more specializing in astrology, or some would be more specializing in teaching the children in the Gurukul. There'd be different kinds of Brahmins, and more high-level Brahmins and low-level Brahmins, and they would be, different, specialized in different parts of the Shastra. Some would know this Veda or that Veda, or, be expert in different areas. Obviously, they should have knowledge of all of it, but some would, like we specialize. Some people are more inclined to be a Pujari, or some people, like, even nowadays we see people have certain strengths. And similarly, there would be different kinds of Kshatriyas. So you'd have a Kshatriya like Lord Ramachandra, who's the king or the emperor of the whole universe. Of course, more than that, because he's Krishna, but, we know Lord Ramachandra was the king, the emperor of at least of the planet, in terms of the Ramayana. But then you have Kshatriyas, lower level Kshatriyas, who would be a Kshatriya of a smaller area, and underneath the emperor, he would be, like it would be a hierarchy. So you'd have the king, and then subordinate kings, and then sub-subordinate kings, like that. And so the whole place would be organized by all these kings who would have, in their own area, they would have the authority to rule. And here we have, in the temple, we have a temple president, we have a temple commander, and then we have, somebody else is in charge of the cows, and somebody's in charge of the, chopping the wood, or it's all, somebody's in charge of the different, making the garlands, and so it's all divided down. So everybody's doing their duty. So in the Varnashram system, it's like that. And then there'll be different kinds of Vaishyas. There'll be some that'll be more inclined for banking, dealing with the money. There'll be some would be more involved with dealing with the spices, and there'll be some would be more, have land, and they would be, overseeing the use of the land and who was doing what, but all for the king, all on the authority of the king. And then some, obviously, a lot of Vaishyas would be involved in taking care of the cows. They'd have so many cows. They said that there was some British person that when they went to India, they said there was more cows than people in India. That was their observation. There was so many. I mean, India is a very populated, very, very highly populated, densely populated country. But there are more cows than people. So you have imagine huge herds of cows, and then you have to have a huge herd of Shudras to come and milk all the cows, yeah? So all these personalities, they'd be engaging the Sudras. So the Sudras who are engaged by Brahmins, to write out all the scriptures, or to prepare all the things for the fire sacrifice, or to do all the things that when they're making medicines, preparing medicines for the Ayurvedic treatments, and doing all the massaging. Every Varna, depending on the other Varnas, it's an interactive thing. So then the Vaishyas would be engaging the Sudras to work in the fields, to grow the crops, and to harvest, and to process all the milk and whatever they would do, churn the butter. And because the ladies would be doing that, gopis. Anyway, and then there are different kinds of Shudras as well. Shudras who specialize in, taking charge of other Shudras, and different. There'd be the potters and the artists and the different areas of special. And the Shudras were not to say, a Shudra is a stupid person, but it's highly skilled, highly, highly skilled. Like somebody who would make, deities, these deities. It's traditional art, goes down thousands of generations of people. Families are trained to carve deities. That's what they do, called stapati. But basically, it's a Shudra skill because it's a practical. You're using your hands. You're using tools and a marble or casting brass or whatever it is. Ashta dhatu. In South India, there's one temple is being built according to traditional instructions, according to traditional methods, and they're using, the traditional stone cutting arts. And they've made all these big bas reliefs of the Leelas of Krishna, but they've all been carved by hand, with the traditional tools. And so the point is that the people have still got these skills. In South India, you still have families that have been, trained their children how to do this fine work, so you can actually have Krishna Leela on the wall in stone. And it's so lifelike, you can see, the wheels of the chariot and people's faces and everything. It's all the details there. But it's been done in stone. And to be able to take one piece of stone and to make it into a three-dimensional piece of art that depicts a Leela of Krishna, a pastime of Krishna, that is a really amazing skill, to be able to do that. These people are extraordinary. But you could say it's a Sudra skill, and like music also. Music is, there are some really amazing Madanga players and people who sing so amazingly. But it's a Shudra, considered a Shudra skill, like cooking also. But it's like very, very, very fine-tuned art, incredible art people have. But it's all, anyway, the idea of all of this activity is varnashram, is for the pleasure of the Lord. And everybody's cooperating, and everybody else is supporting everybody else because, we all need the cow milk, or we all need somewhere to live, or we all need to go to the temple, or, and everybody's life's interconnected with everybody else's life, and everybody else benefits from what everybody else does. Like we are benefiting because somebody is taking care of the cow, somebody's going to milk the cow, somebody else is bringing the milk and boiling the milk and then offering the milk to Krishna. And so we're all benefiting by the activities of others. Or maybe somebody just sits down and drinks the milk and thinks, very nice. But it's because, somebody else is... So devotional society is like that. And even if we have the facility just to sit and chant Hare Krishna, it's because others have, providing that safe space for us to do that. So we're always indebted. We're always social animals. We depend on others. Like here, we depend on the infrastructure that the non-devotees have provided. We're depending on their water now, and we're depending on their electricity, and we're depending on their skills. Often they have to come in. These men are coming in to do these different things. We're depending on their supermarkets. So the idea is that human society is like that, and so it should be organized in such a way that people can at the same time serve God. So people can please Krishna. There's one, I never remember my shlokas, but there's one that says that the purpose of varnashram is to please Krishna. That is the purpose. That is the purpose of life, and we fulfill that just by doing our duty. So everybody has a nature. Everybody has it. Sometimes it's not clear when you first come to Krishna consciousness, because things are so mixed up in the non-devotee world. People don't know who they are, or what they want to do, or what they should do, or what's the best thing for them to do. And they don't get proper advice or guidance, or maybe they just give up, and they just get depressed, or they just taking intoxication because they think it's all too confusing. I don't know what to do, so I'll just waste my time. So, but everybody actually has an intrinsic nature just materially, everybody has some inclination. Some people have an inclination to, to do practical things, to do creative things. There was one lady, when I was living in Belfast, in Ireland, she said that from when she was very, very small, she would always take, pieces of wood and try to make shapes with the pieces of wood. And she would, she would get a chisel, this tool, and she would start making things with the wood. Even when she was really small, she never, nobody told her, but she was always just inclined to do it. Anyway, when she grew up, she was able to get an apprenticeship, and she became a master carver. And she learned all the art, and she could make these very beautiful three-dimensional things out of wood. Sometimes Bruno reminds me like this. He can make very amazing things with wood. So anyway, she ended up carving a really amazing altar for the deities. She used her skill for Krishna. And I'm saying that because people have an intrinsic nature. They have something they really like to do. And that is a clue to what is our varna, what we should be doing for Krishna. Because what we really love to do and what comes naturally is the best thing to do for Krishna. Obviously we have to do the needful when we live in the temple, especially when we're being trained, and our false ego has got to be removed. A few layers of false ego have got to be removed. But we have something we really like to do, and we do it for Krishna. That is the perfection, yeah? You're doing something like, Giri Govardhan Prabhu, he likes to do gardening, and he does wonderful garden for Krishna. Yeah. So many beautiful roses that deities have is because Giri Govardhan has planted thousands of roses. So everybody's indebted for his hard labour, very hard labour in the garden. So we have an intrinsic nature, and we can pray to Krishna to reveal it to us if we don't know what it is. But it becomes, the more we chant, the more we become purified, it will come out. We will get some inspiration how to serve Krishna. And it's very joyful thing. It's when you find your, there's a French word, but they use it in English. They say you find your niche. Mm-hmm. You find your position. Yeah, you find your direction to go forward. Anyway, daily breakfast time. Mm-hmm. Anybody want to make a comment? Prabhu.
Yeah. There are some good hints in this verse how the kingdom was so rich and opulent because to have so many cows and so many elephants, you need a lot of grass.
Yes.
For a lot of grass, you need a lot of water, a lot of rain, particularly. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the rain comes from sacrifice.
Yes.
So it is to be understood that because the people were pious and were offering sacrifice, then the climate was giving so much rain, and as a result, so many things were flourishing.
Yes.
So we can see that because of people are becoming atheistic, the climate is becoming more and more dry. The problem is not warm or cold or CO2 or whatever. The problem is the piety, and the people are not pious enough so that it doesn't rain. If it's hot, it's okay, but it has to rain.
Yeah.
Otherwise it becomes hell, a desert, Mm-hmm. And this is the point that the movement is trying to introduce this so that people become accustomed to doing sacrifice, particularly the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, so that eventually the climate will turn out in a more humid and more easy to feed the people with milk, plenty vegetables and like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're completely right, Prabhu. Yeah. That's what's lacking, is the God consciousness. Even if they prayed, even if they prayed the Christian prayers, it would be a big help. There's a Prahlad Bhakta, he was a Prabhupada disciple, he was here for Janmashtami and Prabhupada's birthday. He said there's no law. He said there's no law that says that France and Europe can't have a drought, have a serious problems, become a desert. People are thinking, oh yes, we have our forests, we have our rivers, everything. But it doesn't mean it's going to be permanently like that. There's no law that says it can't happen. Because he knows a lot about ecology and these things. So right, so the lacking is the Anad Bhavanti Pajanya. The grains come from the rain, and without sacrifice there's no rain. Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, if you perform sacrifice, then Krishna's pleased, and then because Krishna's pleased, the demigods then will send rain, and the rain will then cause the crops to grow with a little help from the Vaishyas planting the seeds, and then we will have food, because Prabhupada says you can't eat nuts and bolts, no matter how many factories you build, how many machines you have. You need rain. You can have as many tractors if you want, but you don't have rain. You have as much tons of fertilizer, but there's no rain, it won't work. So we depend on sacrifice in order to get the rain, to get that's the point Giri Prabhu is making. So we all depend on Krishna. So that's why the Varnashram system is there, so we please Krishna. The whole society is a yajna, it's an offering to the Lord. It makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense.
Yes.
That we live in cooperation with Krishna. We get what we need by satisfying Krishna. Even in this world. We're not talking about going back to Godhead, that is the ultimate. But just to live in this world, you have to be God conscious, otherwise you suffer scarcity. That's why some parts of the world there's a desert, or there's not enough food. Obviously it's mismanagement and it's politics and it's geopolitics. But there's some reason why some people don't have enough water, they don't have enough food, they don't have enough houses. Because of past impiety, and that's the future that's coming in Europe. If people don't become more God conscious, the material situation will deteriorate. You can see it's deteriorate, like in the UK now. People are very impious, and the prices of food and prices of fuel are going up and up. People are becoming just effectively more poor. Because of impiety. Okay. You had your hand up for a minute then.
Maybe I can speak about it later.
Okay, because it's getting late.
Yes.
Anything else? Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, you want to say?
Yeah, I remember that Prabhupada said once, in fact, if you really want to enjoy this material world, you have to be a spiritualist.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. It's true. Devotees suffer. Devotees, they have the best life. Yeah, they have the best life because we know how to satisfy Krishna.
So they are very opulent and they are happy at the same time. You can see that, I don't know, in America they are opulent, but they are not happy. So
No.
opulences can bring happiness only if it's for service.
Yeah. That's a really good perception. If you can really understand that point, that if we offer everything to Krishna, that is my path of happiness. That is a really advanced realization. If you actually have that realization, your life has been perfect, because you just will offer everything to Krishna. Go back to Godhead. It's simple, isn't it? Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness is so simple you can miss it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Go.
Bhagavati Mataji ki jai.
Hare Krishna.